So welcome to the podcast. I'm Michael Harper, and I wanted to talk a little bit about me first, since this is the very first podcast here, and I wanted to thank you for listening, of course. So I'm 23 years old. I'm from the United States, from Georgia to be specific. My second language is Spanish. English is obviously my native language, so I learned Spanish, and I started to learn Spanish about 5 years ago. I speak it fluently now. It almost feels like a native language for me. I have little to no accent when I speak it, and when I speak it to Spanish speakers, they normally think that I'm from Latin America, and they're surprised to hear that I'm actually an American, that I learned Spanish. And this is not to brag or flex or whatever. It's just to show you and prove that it is possible to do that, and it's possible to do that within a short period of time. And in fact, I'll show you. Here's an audio of me speaking Spanish. And by the way, I started learning Spanish. I'm not sure if I mentioned it yet, but I started about roughly 5 or so years ago. And this is a video of an audio of a Spanish project that I was forced to do in my Spanish class just 7 years ago, before I even decided to start learning Spanish. Mi hermano Matthew tiene 19 años. Mi hermano es muy inteligente también, y mi hermano le gusta jugar videojuegos. Me llamo Jorge y me gusta jugar. So, clearly I didn't know any Spanish, and all I did there was just type stuff into Google Translate and say it with a horrible accent. So, it just goes to show that it is very, very possible to do this. So, yeah, you can do it. So I was able to learn Spanish so quickly because I did it in a non-traditional way. And so I wanted to dedicate this podcast to teaching you all about the types of Spanish tricks, tips, resources, and anything else that you want to know or need to know to learn Spanish, just like I did, in the most quick and efficient way possible. And eventually to hopefully lose your accent and even sound like a native speaker. And that's the point of this podcast, and I'm really, really excited to be starting it. I'm going to have weekly episodes. If you go to michaelharperspanish.com, I really want you guys to do this. Go to michaelharperspanish.com. You can download my free 7-step guide to learning Spanish quickly and efficiently. It's 100% free. All you got to do is put in your first name and your email, and you can immediately download it. It shows you the steps, tricks, some tips, and the resources that I use and recommend to learn Spanish quickly and efficiently. So you'll also immediately get notified anytime that we have a new podcast episode. So if you guys can as well, please go ahead and leave a comment, subscribe to this channel, hit that notification bell so that you're also updated anytime that I go release a new podcast episode. Like this video so that more people can see it, and I want this to be as interactive as possible. So to talk a little bit about the goals of this podcast, I would like to be able to eventually do some live chats and phone calls with you guys, where you guys can call in or leave a comment in the live chat with some questions and be able to practice your Spanish with me. The idea is to grow a community around this, and I have a lot of fun ideas in the future. Make sure that you're following me on Instagram. That's where I'm most active every day, with constant live videos and stories and posts that teach Spanish and give you the same type of information. And this is just a more extended way of being able to talk to you guys and to go over some fun topics about Spanish learning. And that Instagram is Michael Harper Spanish, so go follow that as well. So let's get into the topic of today's podcast. And again, since this is just the first episode, I wanted to get that stuff out of the way, to talk about me, introduce myself a little bit, and there will be more time to talk more about me in the future. So if you have any questions about me or my life or Spanish or anything, then let me know. Should you use music and movies to learn Spanish? My answer is yes and no. Everyone's going to tell you that music and movies is the best resource, or one of the best resources to learn Spanish. And while I agree that it's a good resource to do it, I believe that there has to be a certain way of going about doing this. There's a way to do it and a way not to do something, like with anything. I'll tell you what has helped me the best and what I recommend you do when you use these resources. I'll start off by saying that I prefer music more than movies. And at least that's how it was for me. Everyone might learn in a slightly different way, but I'll explain why, and you might be able to relate to these reasons. But there is, again, still a certain way I recommend using each resource, and I'll go over that here. So I'll start off with movies. Let's talk about the movies and using that to learn Spanish. Because movies, like I said, can be a great resource, but I feel that it can be sort of a demotivator at times. I feel like when you watch movies, it's easy to beat yourself up because you don't understand things, or you don't understand what they're saying, you don't understand the words they're using, maybe they're using a slang. And let me just go ahead and say that as fluent as I may be in Spanish, as comfortable as I feel with it, as good at it as I am, I still have trouble understanding a lot of times what is said in certain movies. And so don't beat yourself up if you can't understand anything and everything. With movies, there's this thing where you hear the audio in a movie and it's hard to understand it. It's just really difficult sometimes. Sometimes the balance of the audio is off, or it's really just hard to understand in general, or it's made in a certain specific country where the language used there is just weird, and it's just very colloquial. And so don't beat yourself up if you can't understand what is being said in the movie. And it took me a few years to realize that I'm not going to be able to understand anything and everything, ever, maybe ever. I might be able to understand 99%, but there's always going to be that 1% that's still just I'm not going to be able to get. And same thing with my wife, who's had to learn English herself. She's really a perfect English speaker, but she still has trouble listening to and understanding movies sometimes. So it's going to happen. So when you use movies to learn Spanish, I want you to have that in mind so that you don't go into it beating yourself up and getting demotivated. That is really important. Don't get frustrated, because it happens to the best of us. Heck, I watch English movies with subtitles on just because I don't like training my ears to try to understand everything that they say all the time, and it just happens that way. So I recommend putting subtitles in Spanish. So you're going to want to watch it with subtitles, but the best way to take advantage of movies and shows and whatever video you have that you're watching in Spanish is to put the subtitles in Spanish. Because if you're too busy trying to read the subtitles in English, you're not going to be paying attention to what they're saying in Spanish, and a lot of times the translation that they say from Spanish to English are just two completely different things. They're just on two completely different planets. So I recommend putting it into Spanish. Even if you don't understand a lot of Spanish, you're still going to get a lot more out of it that way. Now, I want you to keep in mind that sometimes what the subtitles say in Spanish are a lot different than what is actually being said in the movie. This isn't always the case, but I've noticed it a lot, especially in like Disney movies or really any movie or show in general. Sometimes I'll be watching the movie in Spanish and I realize that the subtitles are completely different than what's actually being said. And I used to beat myself up a lot before I knew that, because I could not connect with what the subtitles were saying to what was actually being said in the movie. And it really frustrated me and got on my nerves, because I'm reading it out, but I can't, they're saying, what are they saying? I still can't understand. I must be an idiot. And I hated that feeling. So it took me a few years to understand, like, oh, now that I can understand most of what's being said in the movie, I realize that the subtitles are way off, and that's okay. So just go into it with caution. Not every movie is like that. A lot of times they'll do that because they'll put the subtitles different and use different wording and phrases in the subtitles as opposed to what's being said in the actual movie, just to keep it short and so that the subtitles will fit on the screen. So that's one of the reasons that they do that. And a lot of times, again, the subtitles are going to be completely different than what's being actually said. So, as long as you keep those things in mind when it comes to movies or shows or whatever video you're watching, I think it's an excellent resource to learning Spanish. And it's a great way of immersing yourself in the Spanish language. Just don't go into a new cool movie you've been waiting years to come out. Don't go watch it in Spanish and expect to get a lot out of it. And once you find a part of a show or a movie, I recommend just taking a scene at a time if you can. Just take a scene out of a movie and have it on repeat over and over and over and over and over again. I want you to take that part of that movie and I want you to just be able to recite it word for word or know what's coming and be able to listen to it and listen to it over and over on repeat, especially if they're using useful phrases in that part of the movie. because that's going to train your mind to pick up words that you're expecting to hear. Because when we hear words in English, when we hear words in our native language, the reason we're able to process it so quickly is because we've heard these words millions of times. Like, I just said the word process. I just said the word. I just said the word. I just said those words. And the reason I'm able to process it so quickly and understand exactly what I'm talking about, and you're able to understand and process this information, is because you've heard those specific words on repeat in your life millions of times. So I want you to take some scenes from a movie and have it on repeat all the time until you can understand it with your eyes closed. You can recite it. You can practice your speaking and try to make your sound like the people in the movies. So take it and don't just see it as listening practice. I want you to see it as speaking practice as well. So you take a scene from a movie, you memorize everything. I used to write the stuff down. I used to look at the subtitles, make sure it matched the audio, write down the subtitles, and then I would go back like it was a play in a school theater, and I would just try to repeat everything that they said. Awesome way of going about that. And it's kind of what I do with music, and I'll explain that in a second. So you're improving your accent, you're improving your speaking, you're improving your ability to communicate and listen at the same time. So use movies in that way. Those are my best tips, and I'm telling you, those are valuable tips when it comes to movies, and I wish that someone had told me that earlier on in language learning instead of me having to figure it out by myself. Just doing it. I mean, quality over quantity. It's not about how many movies and shows you watch in Spanish. It's about the quality. I'd rather you take one movie and know it really well in Spanish than taking 20 movies you watched in Spanish and not getting anything out of it. Again, quality over quantity when it comes to this stuff, guys. So let's talk about music now. I love music, and if you're learning Spanish, you are at a huge advantage over other languages and cultures, at least in my opinion, because there's nothing like Spanish music. You got reggaeton, I don't know why I said it like that. You've got salsa, bachata, merengue. I mean, you've got all kinds of just awesome music out there, and the more you dive into the culture, the more you fall in love with it. And it's my favorite music to listen to nowadays, and it's getting really, really, really popular and famous now, and it's super trendy. So definitely get into that music. A lot of famous artists. You can look up Bad Bunny. You can look up J Balvin, Daddy Yankee. Those are some really famous guys right now. Even if you don't necessarily like their music, I'm just throwing some famous names out there. So I would definitely get on board with listening to those songs, because music has a way of making it easy to remember, and you match the rhythm with the words in the song. And what I recommend when you listen to music is to sing. And you can do this in the shower, when you're alone in your car. You don't have to be in front of other people, but if you just start singing. All right, I'll tell you what to do in order. Let me back up first of all. So you have a song that you really like in Spanish. Let's say you've got the song Despacito. That was a super famous song here before, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go up and I'm going to Google Despacito lyrics. So we've got the first part, which is Si sabes que ya llevo un rato mirándote, tengo que bailar contigo hoy. Obviously, it sounds a lot different in the song when you do that. But what I want you to do is I want you to memorize these lyrics. And I want you to go back on repeat with this song. And I want you to be able to sing that song perfectly and know it word for word. Because that's going to help you understand the listening more, just like what we did with the movies. But another thing that it's going to do is it's going to work on your accent in Spanish. Because what songs do, and there's this phenomenon in languages that when we talk about accents and sounding like a native speaker, we have to understand that words kind of connect. So when you have, especially like two vowels, you have one word that ends in a vowel and you have another word that starts with a vowel, those words are going to kind of blend together. So like right here, you've got, let me find a word, ya estaba. So you're not going to go ya estaba, you're going to go ya estaba. You're going to kind of flow and connect those words together when you're actually pronouncing it. So songs are a great way to do that if you sing it. It's not about how much you listen to. It's about what you're doing with the songs that you are listening to. So I love to Memorize song. And again, the same thing with movies. Don't get down if you can't understand the words. I can't understand half of what I hear sometimes with some of these guys that are making new music in English, let alone Spanish. So don't get down if you can't understand the lyrics to a song. All you got to do is use Google and look it up. And it doesn't have to be these nasty new songs, even though those are probably some useful words nowadays, depending on how old you are. But just look up a song that you really like that's a Spanish song, look up the lyrics, and then start singing. Put yourself out there. And you can do it alone. Do it in the car. Do it when in your bedroom when with the doors locked. That's what I definitely did. Now I don't care about singing in front of other people. I really hope that this puts into perspective how to use resources, quality resources. Again, it's quality over quantity. I can't stress that enough. It's not about how many resources you have. It's about what you do with the resources that you have. And there's so many ways to immerse yourself in the Spanish language nowadays. We are so lucky to be learning Spanish right now in this day and age because we've got the best music. We've got really good shows. If you've ever been on Netflix, you've got La Reina del Sur. You've got, I think, Narcos. A lot of it's in Spanish. I mean, you've got such a rich culture there and really good quality films that are coming out now that you're missing out if you don't know Spanish nowadays. I mean, pretty soon a fifth of the population within a decade is going to be Spanish-speaking people in the United States. There are more people in the United States that speak Spanish than any other country in the world. That includes Spain, Colombia, Venezuela, Mexico. There are more Spanish speakers in the United States than any other country on the planet. And you may not realize it when you go out to the store, but I do now that I know it and can actually distinguish languages or I can distinguish Spanish from other languages, of course. It's like when I hear an English speaker talk, I know it's in English. I hear someone speaking in Spanish, I know it's in Spanish. I'm telling you guys, I can't go anywhere anymore without hearing at least one or two people speaking in Spanish, and I'm not exaggerating. I live in a fairly populated area, but it is ridiculous how many people speak Spanish nowadays. And I'll tell you, when I go to stores now, if I hear someone speaking Spanish, used to I would get really shy and I wouldn't use Spanish, but I'll just start talking in Spanish with them. And it's so normal now, and people aren't surprised by it. I actually have some really good friends now who are Americans and are really good speakers of Spanish who put themselves out there and speak Spanish, and it's not weird anymore. They're not going to look at you weird. They're going to see it as pretty normal now. A lot of times when you speak in a language with someone and you're an American, they look at you like you're a unicorn or something, but it's really a lot more common now, and it takes a lot of the stress off of speaking to people in Spanish. So it is an awesome time again to be learning Spanish. Get out there, watch some stuff, watch some shows and movies, listen to music on the way to work in Spanish before you hit the bed at night. Watch a show. Or rewatch that clip that you're trying to memorize and just get really good at that song or really good at that particular scene in the movie. I want you guys to have good quality practice with quality resources. So, to wrap it up, guys, I really want you to please subscribe to this channel. Turn on that notification bell so that you get notifications every time I have a new podcast. And also go to michaelharperspanish.com where you can download your free 7-step guide to learning Spanish quickly and efficiently. These are the 7 steps and resources, tools, whatever you want to call them, that I use to learn Spanish and get fluent within a couple of years. Excuse me. So go download that. It'll immediately put you on the email list where you will get notifications every time a podcast comes out. Again, these are weekly podcasts, and apart from that, I have tons of content I'll be putting out on YouTube, on Instagram, at Michael Harper Spanish, and through, of course, that email list that you're going to be subscribed to soon. So, really looking forward to putting these out there for you guys every week and talking with you guys. Share this with your friends who are learning Spanish, and I am excited for this to be another, again, quality resource that you can use to learn Spanish.